Hi, I'm Jason Gorber, and we're here to look at the Skullcandy Crusher ANC2. Now, you'll look at the cover of this box, and it's like this bright, sort of iridescent yellow, and the name Crusher ANC, and you're going to think this is an incredibly obnoxious pair of headphones. And in some ways, you'd be right. These are a very playful headphone, I will say. They work well, they do what they promise to do, but we'll get into sort of what its most interesting feature is. It certainly sets it apart from many others within the range. If you're not aware, Skullcandy is a company that was originally based in, started in Park City, Utah, where I go to Sundance. So they were into sort of, action sport kind of stuff. And that kind of, a little bit of attitude. There are products with attitude, and this one certainly has some attitude. Basically, as you can tell, whenever you have like something like Crusher in the name of a headphone, that really what these have are an extra level of bass, a transducer that essentially turns your head into the center of a subwoofer almost. It basically creates vibrations independent of the regular sort of drivers or speakers that amplifies the bass. Now that is dialable and you can actually tweak it to your heart's content, but we're going to look as to whether or not that is a good thing or a bad thing as we sort of dig more into the review. So inside the box, as you open it up, very simple. You have, again, really nice artwork, nice and clean printed material. We have a quick start guide where it shows you all the features and functionality, which is really nice because there's actually a lot to know. One of the great things about this is that there's a ton of actual hardware buttons on it. So instead of having to remember a series of crazy commands, you just have to remember what all these bloody buttons do. There is, a little user guide that actually gives you a bit of the information. And then you have this pretty small, in a good way, travel case. Nice and durable, does its thing. And then inside, you have that sort of, the hugging mode that you get with some headphones. Oop, I zipped it up rather than unzipped it. You can tell I've been using them. And inside here, you have the headphones. You also have, I should point out, on this nice little Velcro thing, and the little sort of tucks in here, you have your USB-A to USB-C, and you have a 3.5 millimeter to 3.5 millimeter TRS-S cable to allow you to use these plugged in, which is great. I'm a huge fan of headphones. If you're spending this much money, you should be able to bypass the internal amplification if you wish to. And just go hardwire, so you don't have to be using Bluetooth. Great. Then you can use other DACs. You can do all kinds of stuff with that. So huge shout out for that. The phones themselves, relatively light, 300 and something grams, the usual shtick. And you can see on the side here a gazillion buttons, big orange one. This is where the headphone goes in, USB-C charge. On here you have sort of up and down buttons. You have volume up and down, or track up and down. You have a center button, which is what you use to actually connect. And this dial right here. So this guy, as you put it on. Now, I will say, I like on certain manufacturers, they actually print really nicely on the inside, right or left. This is very small writing, sort of in the plastic here. It might actually be easier to see on camera, but I happen to know that the one with the dial is the left, so you put it on and you can see. Now, in terms of noise canceling, the pads are relatively robust, sort of memory foamy kind of stuff. So without them even being powered on, there's a bit of noise canceling. And that's what's really nice about over-the-ear circumaural headphones like this, when they're actually built well, is that you don't need to use active noise cancellation. Passive noise cancellation, in other words, foam rubber, can actually do a pretty decent job of attenuating outside noise, which is nice. Now, let's talk, so when I talk about things, so on the inside there, you see it says R&L. Put that on the inside of the headphones. Much easier to do than the yoga that you have to do to actually make it work. Where's the Pilates? I never remember. Clearly. Anyway, what does that dial do? It does Crusher mode. And essentially, as I said, it's a massive amount of bass. So when you listen to something, you're dialing it up to 11. I mean, one of the tracks I did play was Spinal Tap's Big Bottoms, because of course you're going to play that if you have something that's bass heavy. I played stuff from Peter Gabriel. I played a bunch of old school 80s hip hop with analog bass going really low. I played some Hans Zimmer stuff. And it's funny. I mean, is it accurate? No. Are they good sounding? Absolutely not. It hurts your head in some ways. You would never listen to it that way. But as a gimmick, it's great. It's like I mean, the best thing that I can say about these headphones is I would never buy these to be. I mean, I'm a lunatic, so these are not going to be my only pair. But I would never buy these to be the only sort of set for critical listening. They're just fun. In fact, if you dial the Crusher all the way down, they're pretty good headphones. Not the most accurate. The mids are still a little rough. The highs are okay. The sort of regular bass is still pretty punchy. Even with everything dialed down, they're still certainly EQ'd for a very bass heavy presentation. And if you dial, what's nice about the dial is you can either push it and it goes 20, 40, 60, 80, or you can dial it a little bit. And when you put a little bit, you're like, oh, it's sort of like, it feels like you're getting the noise from an external subwoofer, you know, your head's just shaking a little bit. If you put it up to 100 and listen to really bass things, it's literally like every time there's a bass drum. And again, you know those movie theaters where you have the seats that sort of vibrate? You know, the shockers that they used to have in the 50s, and now they have at theaters all over. It's sort of like that. It's like, would you actually choose to have that much bass? No, but God bless, you can if you want. And so, just for gratuitousness alone, it is fun to be able to completely crank it and listen to it. And then you start listening to acoustic stuff. You want to hear when somebody's actually plucking an acoustic guitar. What's it like if every time they hit a low E string, it is wild. So forget things that are sort of meant to be bassy. It EQs in such a way that even for music where really bass is not the most important thing going on. I listen to Leonard Cohen on these. Fabulous. I mean, let's be clear. Ridiculous is not the way Leonard Cohen was ever meant to sound. It was not the way the engineers intended the recordings to be. But in terms of a fun sort of earphone experience, it's there. Now, whether or not this is something that you would buy to sort of be that kind of sort of playful sound, entirely up to you. Again, we talked about this with televisions. Usually you buy a television and turn off most of the fancy stuff. This is like once in a blue moon you'll actually, I never have motion interpolation on, but some people do for certain specific things. You have different modes, etc. When it comes to headphones, usually I just like the simpler the better. Just give me the sound. Now, one thing this does have is uses a its app, which is actually a really decent app. It allows you to EQ. It allows you to actually tweak the sound, and there's actually one of their modes allows you to personalize the audio. And so the personalized audio actually allows it. They actually have here the company. You know, I've unfortunately forgot the name of the company. It starts with M. Point is a third-party company that you actually use the application, and it sort of does a hearing test, and that actually creates your own EQ curve. It's like when you do room correction, you're doing human head correction. And then the headphones were pretty good. Certainly not in the caliber with even things sort of commensurate value. They're still a little heavy in certain frequencies and sort of muddy in others. But, you know, they certainly tamed a lot of its sort of wildness in a good way. So that when you do just want to sit back and listen or actually have something working, that's the way to go. And then when you want to go bonkers, you just crank the bass, because why not? Again, I do not want to dissuade you from these. I'm just letting you know that this is like a monster truck version of a headphone. It drives on the highway if you want to, but really that's not what it's about. It's about like going over and making a big noise and doing it. So I can see people who are gamers plugging this into the system and just wanting the explosions to literally be rattling in their head. I can see people who listen to EDM or any other kind of electronic music that just want to feel that they're at the club. This is what you're going to get. Maybe even jazz people, when you're listening to acoustic bass and you just want to feel that your head's sort of inside the bass or inside a grand piano, this is what these are for. So, are these the most studio accurate headphones? No, but they're also a lot of fun. And thanks to all these buttons, it allows you don't have to go into the app and tweak all the stuff. You can just dial it in. It's very quick. That allows you to almost immediately tune it to your taste. Active noise cancellation, again, is okay. It's not the best, but it does a pretty decent job. Overall, I would say that these are good, satisfactory headphones with that crazy magic trick, that crusher notion. And that's what sets them apart. Is that a differentiator that's important? I leave that up to you. But for me, I certainly had a lot of fun of just finding tracks where I could be the most obnoxious with it. Is that a selling point, that you're looking for stuff to actually do? Well, it's a good way of digging in your music collection, thinking about stuff you haven't listened before and sort of going back and doing it. So in some ways, I listen to more different tracks and more stuff that I dug in thanks to the Skullcandy Crushers than I have with almost any headphone in many, many months. And for that, I got to thank the manufacturer. Thanks so much for watching. Let us know in the comments what you think if you actually have a chance to listen to them. And we'll see you next video. All the best. Take care.